What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Draymond Green Show YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the post that you love. Thank you. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Draymond Green Show. Interesting game in Orlando last night. We'll get into that. We are back with another episode on the Bleacher Report app, which means it's live, so we'll be answering some mailbag questions at the end of the episode, so make sure you drop those in the chat. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@DraymondShow. Excuse me, @DraymondGreenShow. youtube.com/@DraymondGreenShow. That is the little @ symbol, not AT. The little @ symbol, Draymond Green Show. Check that out. Let's get into this episode. The Dubs win 2 straight on the Florida swing. Man, the Florida swing is tough this year. Orlando has gotten better. They're a playoff team. They got those young guys, which we've talked about, in Paulo and Franz, who I think, their futures, which we'll get into in a minute. But coming down and getting those 2 wins, especially after a tough home stretch, was very important, especially with the standings and with Tari Eason's Houston Rockets trailing us for a play-in spot. It was an important couple games for us. And to start the trip off, going to Minnesota, which was a tough loss. We led the whole way and weren't able to close that game out in the fourth quarter. They had a big fourth quarter. We just weren't able to close that game out. And to come down on the Florida swing where Miami is Miami. We all know who Miami is regardless of who they have on the floor. Always going to be a tough game. Bam's playing great basketball. And, the Miami Heat just always find those guys. Haywood Highsmith was getting off. I'm not sure where he came from, what's his backstory, but he's just another one of those guys that Miami have found. And then coming into Orlando, a team young team who's always motivated to play against us, coming in on the back-to-back, which is always tough. It's always Orlando on the back-to-back, Orlando on the front of a back-to-back. It's always something, and I hate that it always gets scheduled like that. But that is the nature of it. I think that'll start to change as Orlando keep getting better. You're going to have these young guys in the playoffs this year, and not sure if you all know, but the NBA schedule is based on a national TV schedule. So the national TV, ESPN, TNT, ABC, they all get to pick the games that they want, and then the schedule is filled in around that. Obviously, we've had 1 million national TV games over the last 10 years due to the Steph Curry effect, and Orlando hasn't had a bunch of them. I think they had 1 this year. But so in theory, the Orlando game always just get kind of slid onto the schedule around Miami, which is normally a national TV game. And so it just kind of always gets slipped in there because you're on the Florida swing. And it just always makes it a tough game. Like I said, I think as these young guys continue to show and become household names in this league, like I think Paolo Banchero will, which I said years ago before he was drafted. Always been a big fan of Paolo Banchero. Thought he was undoubtedly the number 1 pick in his draft. He's shown that. Continues to grow. Had a conversation with Gary Harris, who's my young fella, Michigan State, go green, go white. And Gary was confirming to me more of what I thought, which is Paulo is a serious guy. He's mature, doesn't quite act like he's 21 years old. And he said something to me that I don't doubt one bit and that I've thought from the beginning, which was, yeah, Dre, he'll probably be an all-star the rest of his career. He's just figuring it out. And as he figures it out, it's like he's more and more motivated. And he's already a motivated kid. He's from Seattle. We know the roots that's been laid there. We know his upbringing. We know he's had guys like Jamal, Nate, and Brandon, all of those guys around just to show you how to be a pro. And so with Paulo, he already got a leg up in that aspect, which is huge, especially coming to a team that don't really have many veterans. They got G, which I think to have Gary Harris around is big for that team because G is a stable guy. He's been in the league for 10 years now. He's well respected by everybody in the league, and he's a pro. And so I think that's great for those guys, having Joe Ingles this year. But, just having a young team like that with not many veterans, that upbringing is huge for Paolo because in a sense, you've already been shown what it's like to be a pro. And that is the benefit of having guys like Jamal Crawford from your city that's giving back to the young guys and showing them the way. And so I think this team will become a household name, as the years go and those guys continue to get better. And hopefully that game won't be slid in to the schedule like it's always been. It's almost like it's not a priority. And it makes it tough. And we've had a tough go here. And so it was good to win last night. However, I got ejected 4 minutes into the game.
All right, the NBA season is in full swing, coming down the stretch. Then we move right into the playoffs in April, May, and June. I can't wait. Spice things up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA right now. All you have to do is put down $5 and get $150 instantly in bonus bets. Pretty good trade-off. I pay $5, I get $150. North Carolina listeners, do not forget. Welcome to the party. DraftKings Sportsbook now live in your state, North Carolina. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Takes 90 seconds. The code is Colin, C-O-L-I-N. Again, 90 seconds. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app. Put in Colin. New customers bet $5, get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. That is the trade. All right? The code is always Colin. The crown is yours.
Just can't do it, regardless of what was said. I'm not about to get into what was said because that's irrelevant. To Steph's point, I have to be on the floor, and whatever that means, you just have to do that. I look at this, I'm not overreacting to this because of everything that happened in the beginning of the season. I feel like since I've returned, everything's headed in the right direction and hit a little bump in the road, get over it, and keep going. Extremely grateful that my guys held me down. It's a very important game for us, and for them to go out and get a win. Trace played unbelievable basketball. Andrew Wiggins took over the game in the fourth quarter, and Steph Curry sent everybody night-night, as he does. Klay Thompson, tough back-to-back, man. Playing 30-plus minutes, starting for the first time in a long time at Miami, coming out, getting 28, then coming back the next night and giving us huge minutes, knocking shots down, spacing the floor. Klay got off to a really good start, which got us going, got us out running, hit some shots, got out in transition, and that changed everything. I thought it was huge to see Klay back into the lineup. Not that BP did anything wrong. Sometimes you just need something different, and we all know what Klay brings to the table. What Klay brings to the table, nobody else brings to the table in the history of basketball. There's facts to back that up. 60 3/4, 37 1/4. No one in history brings that to an NBA game. So with what Klay brings, it just brings a different thing. And we saw it shine through in a major way these last two games. And that's a big call from Steve Kerr. Huge call from Steve Kerr. That's coaching at his finest right there. You talking because when certain things like that happen, where Klay goes to the bench, right? That's a monumental move. Everybody's talking about it. First time in 12 years he's come off the bench, blah, blah, blah. When you do things like that, not that Steve stuck his foot in his mouth, but in theory, you kind of stick your foot in your mouth because now it's a big story. And so then when you go back to it, it's like, oh, look at that. And so many people would be afraid to go back to it just for that reason. And that's why I always say, Steve is unbothered by anything. He's unfazed. So most coaches would be like, but we went away from it, and now what are they going to say? Blah, blah, are they going to pick this apart? Steve doesn't get off, and Steve is just going to make the best decision for the team at all times. And the beauty of that, we were talking couple episodes ago around Memphis and how you can follow your coach. The beauty in that is the unfazedness by Steve, the unbotheredness. that is that by Steve, where it's just like, I'm unbothered by anything. I'm just standing these moments, making these decisions. And that's just because he's never rattled by anything. That's all a product of that. And so, like I said, man, that's coaching. That's coaching at its finest. That's why Steve Kerr is who he is. That's why he is the highest paid coach in NBA history. That's why he has 4 championships in, what was it? 4 championships in 10 years or something like that? That's why he is one of the most winningest people in basketball history. 4 championships as a coach, 5 as a player. One of the most winningest people in NBA history. That's why, because he's just unfazed. And a move like that jolt us, and all of a sudden 2 games on this road trip. Obviously, like I said, the Minnesota one got away, but it sets us up to possibly have a 4-1 road trip if we go take advantage, and that's a huge trip coming off the homestand that we had, and at this point in the season. So shout out to Stevie Kerr. Big move getting Klay Thompson back in that game. And back to getting kicked out the game. It just can't happen. I said what I said. I deserved to get kicked out at that point. And what I said, if I'm all the way honest with y'all, I kind of was trying to turn my body and angle and go to the bench. And I said what I said like a little too soon before angling my body to the bench. But yeah, it just can't happen. And, that, like, we need to win games. So, like I said, not going to overreact like, oh, man, like, stuff is never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. Like, I know where I am. I understand what I'm doing moving forward. And in my position, just make sure that that's the exception and not the rule. And so, moving on, and like I said, shout out to my brothers for holding me down and getting that win. Need to go get a couple more wins. The wins were big because of the playoff race. Everyone's been blowing my phone up, so I must speak about this. Because of the playoff race, Tari Eason's had comments. Now, as you all know that are fans of this show, the Draymond Green Show, I am a big Tari Eason fan. Why would he come out and make a video telling the Warriors to come out and play? Everybody in Houston had a heart attack when he did that, because Houston is a tough place to talk to us. Like when you look at Memphis and what happened with Memphis a couple years ago, like that, Memphis was already a tough place to talk to us. Like when you lose to a team in the playoffs when it matters the most, and like especially at the height of like, with them dubs with like the height. When you lose it, like it's tough to talk to us because that's what matters. And so when you start talking, everybody just look back like, bro, you can't talk to them because of that. And so shout out to the young fella, coming out talking about Warriors come out and play. We need to get him, and he got to come to the Bay and get in sync better with that, because the chant is a little more in sync than he was. But like I said, a part of the reason that I like Tari Eason is that he would come out and do that. Like that's when I saw it, I wasn't surprised at all. I am a little surprised that he hasn't played in the game since January 1st, and so it's kind of tough to come out yelling, come out and play, and you're not going to play. It puts a lot of strain on your guys. Like, you can't get out there and help them. But I respect it. I mean, it's a big moment for their franchise. They're on on the trails of the play-in. It's a big moment for the franchise, so I get it. It's been a while. But I'm telling you, it's a lot of people in Houston, city of Houston, which I love Houston, by the way. It's a great city. Love the place. A lot of people there scratching their head like, come on, Tari. We've seen this movie before. So I thought that was funny. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's why we rewinded. Now moving back to where we were headed, which is the mind of the game. Like I said, those guys, JJ and Bron, they breaking down the game. They're breaking down actions. They're having a high-level basketball conversation that, quite frankly, most people probably won't understand. But they're doing a good job of breaking it down to you. And I saw them talking about our split cuts. When Steve introduced this concept of the split cuts, it took a while to build the chemistry on it because it's a feel thing. And so like it's all read and react. If I do this and they do that, then you do this. And if they do that, then you move. And it's like a quarterback reading. Like you got your first read, you got your second read, you got your third read, you got your fourth read. The interesting thing about it is like it layers and layers and layers. And as time has went on, we've just layered the split cut more and more. It started as just a pin in, guy come off, guy die. There's so many other layers to the split cuts now because it's like a progression of a quarterback. Like you read your, all right, next guy, up. You see sometimes like a quarterback come to go across the field, scanning their progressions, come all the way back. Like that's like the split cut, which is why I enjoy being the passer in the split cut because it's just fun. Like you're watching everything develop from the lowest point of the floor. Like you're lower than just about everybody. And now, at times, you got that guy on the weak side, which Brian was talking about, KD, where you can skip to the weak side shooter. But you always want that guy to lift some, to give you that angle to pass it. So, in theory, you are the lowest guy on the floor. And if you think about that from a defensive perspective, the lowest guy on the floor is the most important guy on the floor. Why? Because he's the back line of the defense. He sees everything. And so in the split cut, I'm the lowest guy on the floor when I'm the passer. I can see everything develop. And sometimes you just see the breakdown happening. You're like, okay, I'm about to get him. Boop, got him. There it goes. And, that's been a staple in our offense since Steve Kerr came 10 years ago. And like I said, when he first put the split cuts in, it was one of those things, and it goes back to the ball movement that he incorporated in our offense, which was like, yo, Steve, you got us like keep passing the ball, but like Steph and Clay's supposed to get a lot of shots. And I remember very clearly him saying, the guys who's supposed to get the shots are good, the ball's going to find them. And we all like, man, going with that, Steve, man, that ain't going to work. What you talking about? And sure enough, we started to pick that offense up over the first couple weeks, and you're like, man, the ball really finds Steph and Clay. Like, it was very interesting. And the split cuts were kind of the same thing. Like I said, it's just been layer of building. And to Brian's point, when KD came, I don't even think it was necessarily about putting a shooter on that weak side because, number one, KD is far more than just a shooter. KD scores that basketball. But that definitely makes a difference. But even if you don't have a shooter on that weak side, we also came up with another couple things that even if it wasn't a shooter on that weak side, you could still skip it to that guy and move on to the next action. And so that's the layers of it. And there's plenty of layers to it. But, Brian caught a lot of hell with them split cuts over the years. You know, Brian liked to play quarterback. And to his point, he's like, you got to watch his eyes. Sometimes you got to look Brian off a little bit and boom. And it's always fun with that having that chess match with Brian because he is like Ed Reed over there, best free safety ever. I feel like I'm an incredible free safety myself, but Brian is a great free safety, and obviously he reads the game as well as anyone. And he's over there, he's always trying to get to the backside of that split and put himself in the help. But there's been ways to manipulate Brian too in the backside because he's trying to read it all. So it gets interesting. But the split cuts are a staple. They're tough to guard. And like I said, one of the reasons that it's the toughest thing to guard is because it's just a read and react thing. Like, so you can't quite script it. Like in the NBA defense, you script what you want to give up. You know, you're like, we're taking this away, this, and this. But the reality is the NBA, so you can't take away everything. So you have to choose like, all right, if we're going to lose to them, we're willing to die by this. And sometimes teams kill you with that, but more often than not, you're going to win if you execute that plan. And with the split cuts, you can discuss what the patterns are, but at the end of the day, once it starts happening, it's still on your players to read the situation and react to what's happening. And as they're reading, it's a lot of moving pieces coming around, and they're trying to make those reads, and it gets tough. And so, it was cool to see Brian and JJ discuss the splits, knowing the hell that it's caused Brian over the years. Although I'm like Tyrese, now they beat us in the playoffs last year, so maybe I shouldn't talk. That battle go too far back. That ain't stopping with one playoff loss. But So shout out to them with that. And me looking at the NBA, I think when I think of the toughest actions to guard in the NBA, what would they be? Anytime you put somebody on in a single side tag situation, that's always tough. That would be like if I'm Steph and I'm on the left side of the floor, you got Draymond rolling in to set a screen and he's diving, Steph's coming off to his right hand, and you got Klay on the same side of the floor that the screen is now going away from, which means that puts Klay's man in a single side tag position. Single side meaning there's one guy over there, so you don't have another guy to X out in what we call. So if it's two guys on that side, if one guy go help, the one guy has to drop a bit and take the first pass out and play two. If you put a guy on a single side, there's no X. So you have to make that guy go tag the roller. So it would be me rolling or Trace rolling or JK rolling or somebody rolling. You have that guy is put in a situation where he has to go tag the roller, meaning go in and bump the roller. So ideally, you want him to start in. Because you start in, it's a one-way closeout, meaning I start there, I get my bump, I start to exit as I get my bump. That makes your closeout shorter. The reality is you put a guy like Klay Thompson on the weak side and you're not starting in because you're scared as hell to leave his body. And so that's single side tag. To me, that's always one of the toughest actions to guard because you just put that guy in the blender and he got to figure out how I can get this tag and get back to the shooter. And if it's Klay Thompson who only need that much space to get a shot off, it makes it tough on that single side tag. And then you kind of play with Klay. You move him up and down, higher up in the slot, on the wing to the corner. Like you move that guy based on where you want the tag to be or not to be to make that tag tougher and a longer closeout. So to me, I think that's always going to be one of the toughest actions to guard just because it's no help. And you put guys in a 2-on-1 situation in the NBA, the 2-on-1 should win out more often than not. And so I think for me, that's one that I would look at and I would say are one of the toughest actions to guard. But yeah, that was from Mind the Game, episode 2. I'm going to toss it to Jackson for a mailbag segment before we get out of here and I make our way to Charlotte.
All right. Let's start with from @JakeSteak. Caitlin Clark was offered $5 million from Ice Cube to join the Big Three over the summer. Do you think she should take that?
It depends on what the goals are, right? Like Caitlin Clark is going to make plenty of money. So there's no need to money grab. What's the downside of that? The downside of that is Caitlin Clark go play in the big three, and those guys in the Big Three, like it's not like sorry basketball players in the Big Three. It's guys that's playing in the NBA. It's guys that are still actively playing overseas. Like these guys getting to it in the Big Three. If Caitlin Clark doesn't perform well due to that, then what's the conversation? And so I think it does more harm than good for Caitlin Clark. I think it'd be groundbreaking for Ice Cube to get her in the Big Three. I think there's a 0% chance that it happens because Caitlin Clark would need percentage of the league because that's the only way it can make, like, it only makes sense if like the amount of money that she can make grows and like you can't put a cap to it. But for her just to take $5 million to do what comes with that, it just doesn't make sense. That also falls during the WNBA season. So how is she going to play? So logistically, it just doesn't make sense. So does she opt out of the WNBA and go play in the Big Three? Maybe one day the Big Three reaches that point. I don't think it quite makes sense right now unless you make that a financial thing where she can make a bunch of money. But $5 million, unfortunately, is just not enough. It doesn't make sense. And I'm sure whoever is behind Caitlin Clark is thinking about building a brand, not grab some money. You're looking to grab some money and you're Caitlin Clark should fire you today. If you're representing Caitlin Clark and you like, hey, Caitlin, by the way, I got this. If Caitlin Clark probably should fire you for bringing that idea to her because you shouldn't even put that idea in front of Caitlin Clark's face. The amount of money that Caitlin Clark has made and is going to make makes no sense for her to risk that And I'm a big Ice Cube fan and want to see the league do well, but just giving you the truth as you know you're going to get on the Draymond Green show, that may just not enough money for Caitlin Clark. The risk isn't worth the reward. And Caitlin Clark is growing the WNBA in the women's game. And the only way Caitlin Clark can continue to grow the women's game is to go play in the WNBA, not play in the Big Three. So that's my spiel on that.
All right, next question from @Samel. The league needs more Draymond Green type of players. All this friendly stuff isn't good for the game. It takes away the competitiveness. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm never going to argue with you saying the league need more me, but in saying that, I think the game is very competitive. I think regardless of guys are friends or not, you're going to compete. Like, I always go back to Bron. Me and Bron are great friends. I want to take his head off every time we play. Like, that's just the reality. He want to take my head off. It's not literal. Like, meaning I want to do whatever I got to do to win. He wants to do whatever he got to do to win. Doesn't affect our friendship. Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley was friends in the 90s. Like, guys were friends. They golfed together before games. There's just this logic of friendships just started in the NBA. Stop. Like, you just see them on social media more. Those guys didn't have social media. You didn't know their lives. You get to see more of our lives, so you think. And then the older guys fall into the trap of like, oh, they friends. Like, y'all been friends too, man. Like, you don't just play in this league and not pick up friends along the way. Like, it doesn't make sense. So, guys been friends in the NBA, and they've been competing forever. And guess what? Guys going to continue to be friends in the NBA, and you're going to continue to compete. And that ain't changing anything. So I don't think it's the friendships that are stopping physical play in the NBA. What stops more physical play in the NBA are the rules. Rules are rules. That's what stops physicality in the NBA. It's not that, oh, man, Jason Tatum, my friend. It's my little bro, of course. Guess what? When we played in the NBA Finals, I didn't say hi to him the whole time. He didn't say hi to me the whole Finals. And then after we hugged, what's up, bro? I miss you. Dang, it was bothering me not talking to you. Like, it's my brother. Yes, great. Guess what? Did that change anything with how I went at him, how he went at me, how Boston fans treated me because me and Jay? No, it didn't change anything. So the whole theory just doesn't make sense. If anything, I want to beat you more because guess what? JT is going to be at my wedding that summer. And I'd rather be the champion walking into my wedding than JT being the champion walk. Like, you got all of these things that go on in our minds. That's not stopping no competition. So people got to stop with that. That changes nothing. What changes physicality in the NBA are simply the rules.
That's a great answer. Before we get to the last question, reminder to everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a couple very, very cool interviews coming up. But to close out, let's go from @JJ6IX. Draymond, do you think that you are misunderstood?
Do I think I'm misunderstood? Of course. But so is everyone else that the world judges and don't know. You know, so I don't look at myself like, oh, y'all misunderstood this of me, and like, look at me, I'm misunderstood. Like Steph Curry's misunderstood simply because you don't know him. LeBron James is misunderstood simply because you don't know him. So the reality is, with the jobs that we do, we're in front of a camera all the time. There's always something going on. There's always talk around us. There's all of these things. And so it's in your face. When something is always in your face, it's only a natural thing to feel like you know it. You know them, you know. And the reality is you don't. You see what you see and that's it. There's a entirely different and other layers to that person than what you get the opportunity to see. So am I misunderstood? Absolutely. But so is just about every other guy in the NBA. I don't take that as, man, they're picking on me and I'm misunderstood or anything like that. We're all misunderstood simply because our lives are on display in a very small way. But in people's face, you see it all the time. So in your mind, it's just like, that's our life and that's what's on display to you. But the reality is it's not. And it's in basketball, it's not the only thing in any of our lives. So the reality is we're all misunderstood. That is going to be a wrap from this episode of the Draymond Green Show. Appreciate the questions. Next time we go live, there will continue to be mailbag segments. Got another episode dropping next week. That'll be a fun one. It'll be a great one. Owner of an NBA team coming through the Draymond Green Show. Make sure y'all check that out. Until next time, that's a wrap. Peace.